There we go. We're live now. What's going on, fellas? 1 second. Pouring a coffee. I know normally my girl brings me one as the cast is starting. It's a very sweet thing she does. She's off visiting her parents right now, so it's just you and me. That's going to be pretty fun. I've got a good episode. We're going to have to be a little more constrained. So Rich is hosting Rule Zero today. It's going to be on his channel. He's starting it a little bit early, like 10:15 or so. So instead of the regular 2-hour schedule we're doing like an hour, hour and a half, and then we're gonna flip over to Rule Zero. Should be fun. We're gonna bitch about modern women. Anyways, let me know if the levels are good. If you want to say something that you want me to respond to, just throw it in a super chat because I'm just gonna be getting right into it. I'm not gonna be paying a lot of attention to the chat, which I should be. Normally I would, but like I said, time is time. Pause the thing here. So as you can see, there's 4 general topics here. I don't have a good name for it, like Fallen Alpha, I don't know, Rising Beta, but it's essentially like a has-beens and never was. That's the first topic here. Next part's going to be a victim of circumstance, which is interesting. You're going to see this as you go through your red pill journey. Start having better sexual strategies and, generally living life better, or at least more under your control. And then this is one that's almost like going to be a little bit of navel gazing for me. It's like, who is the audience here? So I'm actually curious who it is that's watching this stuff. And then the grass is greener where you water it. It's a nice follow up here to give you guys a nice warm heartfelt message at the end. So anyways, what am I talking about when I say fallen alphas? Well, from what I've seen in my time since probably 2013 onwards in the red pill is the kind of guys that had, struggling sex lives, single dudes, the occasional married guy in the main like red pill space. And then there was the married red pill, which tended to have married guys who end up in lives of quiet desperation or acute hardships and then how they get around it. And it was very easy from the married to the relationship side of things, which I'd argue is the superior side, not because being married or in a relationship is better, but I find it's too easy for single guys to like ego stroke themselves and assume they're living their best life when they're really just kind of doing a coping strategy. But with the married guy, you have like a living, breathing shit test beside you. So it's impossible to bullshit yourself in that same way. So from a life standpoint, I'm not here to say which one is better or not. I'm just saying from the content standpoint, having that objective feedback mechanism does wonders. Just wonders. Look at you guys. Technically, that's a Dune reference, by the way, not a Blade Runner reference. Oh yeah, I think that might be a little on the high side, so let me turn that down a bit. Anyways, so for guys that were in struggling marriages, you tended to have 2 broad categories. The first one was guys who used to be like a Chad. If you guys don't know, Chad doesn't exist. Chad's not a real person. Chad is a term to encapsulate a concept, and that's the concept of sexual abundance for men. It was an old, I want to say, Tyler Durden post from the So Suave days called The Secret Society. It's an old pickup thing. It's pretty interesting. And in there, they describe a concept where all of women and maybe, 3% of men, which we've come to find out now is closer to 20%, but whatever, are part of this secret society. They're open about sex. They're non-judgmental. They do all the crazy things. They have a lot of fun. And everybody else is part of like the women aren't like that. So these guys were part of the secret society. They're the ones that got laid on the weekends. They're the ones that had fun. They're the ones that, and I should say I'm including myself in that. I know everybody likes to like call themselves Sigma males and hot crap, but I'm like, in this case, I think so. Like I said, I earned my stripes the day that girl was telling me how great her fiance was while I was sleeping with her, after knowing her for maybe 40 minutes. Right place, right time, honorary member of the secret society. Here's the point, though. Those guys go through life with very Chad-like ease. I'm not saying life is easy. They still work hard. They still do great things. There's some people in the chat, I guarantee, who have been like that. Guaranteed. And they'll get through life sleeping with girls. They actually pick one that they really like, who's really good for them or whatever reason, and decide to get married or have a relationship. Maybe they even have some kids. Life is great. It's essentially that blue-pilled lie that everybody was sold, right? You know, work hard, white picket fence, here's your wife. You don't really care about her notch count or any of the insecurities that we talk about in the sphere. They all come from a place of scarcity. And that's why actual, like, I don't want to say normal, but attractive, sexually promiscuous men start laughing at all this weird manosphere shit. And it's because, of course, they do. It's like, you meet a guy who slept with 50 girls before he decided to settle down at like 26 or whatever. Do you think he's going to give a shit about notch count? Probably not. Why would he? It's like, oh, whatever. What's her notch count? I'd probably beat that. Even if he doesn't, he's like, well, it happens. It just never would have occurred to him to have that as a concern, right? But being good is no protection from hardship. And this is what happens when I call it fallen alpha. Because these guys are living the best life and then something happens. In some cases, it could be, you know, laid off from jobs. 2008, the housing crisis, a lot of male-focused jobs just dropped off and never came back. Guys lost their life's work. Guys who were otherwise super attractive men started turning to opiates, like the opiate epidemic, losing all their attractiveness because it turns out when men hit hard times, there's no support network. Girls hit hard times, there's a support network. There's friends, there's family, there's all kinds of shit, right? But when men hit it, it's just kind of like throwing away the trash. And that's the problem. If you've been a man that's believed in a very glossy life script for your entire life, and then as soon as something happens, you're like, that's all right. I've had my community's back for my whole life. They can get me back on this one. And when they're like, yeah, go fuck yourself, it tends to manifest as a guy losing his shit. Rage. Like, as much as I'd love to say it's like the sad, downtrodden incel type men who end up like taking the easy way out and suck starting a shotgun, it's not those guys. It's these, you know, what Rollo calls blue pill alphas, but it's essentially guys who've lived with one method of the world and then finding out that all of this greatness around them was contingent on them always being at peak performance. Just quickly here. So I see Not the Real Carl, US $2. I think you'd enjoy the Whisper interview. I did enjoy the Whisper interview. I always got time for him, man. I really do. Throw a link in there if you can. Anyways, where was I going with this one? Yes. By the way, that is really good. I reference Whisper a lot. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's on, I think, the Real Joe D's channel. He has an interview with him. So it's pretty cool to hear. Anyways, yeah, and it's weird to explain it too, because these guys, they have experienced failure, but what they have is they have a better set of strategies and tools to get them through this stuff. So failure doesn't register as failure. It's actual abundance. Like the abundance that a lot of guys are trying to fake, they have it. And then you put them in this situation and shit goes haywire. There's guys in the married red pill community that were that guy, and then they got sick. Maybe like a thyroid problem. Maybe it's like laid off, like I said. And then all of a sudden everything turns on them. And it's not like her family. Guys can even get past that. Okay, her family's looking out for her. Of course, they're going to say, kick me to the curb. But it's when like a guy's own family starts to turn on him too. It's guys realize how alone they are. And it's a tough pill to swallow. That's the bad part. The good part is they get to that same level of quiet desperation that every man gets to the point where he types into Google, why is my wife being such a bitch? And then some whine more please or Whisper or Archwinger or heaven forbid me or Rollo article comes up. And then they get caught down this rabbit hole finding that not only are they not alone, but a lot of guys have been dealing with this for a long time. And it turns out there's been some solutions that work out. I'll make a reference here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull it up and put it in the chat just so you guys can see it. To date, I have made the argument that this is the best article from the Rational Mail. Right there. Confidence in the safety net. It makes the case that all these red pill tools, and everybody's got this really stupid idea of what they're about. It's not about only getting 9s and 10s, brah. It's not about living a perfect life. It's not about bubble wrapping you from stuff. It's the ability that when things go south, to understand why they went south, to be able to take measures to stop them from going south. And then when it does happen, you have a way out of it. It's a safety net. Think of it like a motorcycle helmet. Doesn't mean you're not going to crash, but I guarantee you're not going to crack your head open when you do. So that's the fallen alpha. And then the other one, I don't know, I don't call it, I think I called it rising beta. Those are the guys that most guys resonate with. And that's why they get a predominant amount of the attention. They are the guys who worked hard, maybe got a girlfriend, and then maybe she gave them a little bit, but it was never very good. Their sex life was generally unfulfilling, and they had coping strategies because they didn't know what Chad's life was like. That's why they call it a secret society. And maybe they kind of get older, they get established in their career, and then all of a sudden the girls that they pined for when they were younger, now that they're aging out of the sexual marketplace, they're hitting that baby rabies, 28 to 35-year-old demographic, and now all of a sudden, hey, I didn't realize how great you were until just now that I needed somebody who has exactly what you have. So they get into the marriage thinking, that's awesome. Hard work is always rewarded. They're in ignorant bliss. I don't even fault those guys. It would be a great deal if the bargain was held up, but unfortunately, it isn't. Because they get into a situation where they keep giving more and more and more and receiving less and less and less. And then at some point, they'll get something called wife goggles. Wife goggles are like when you get with a girl and you fall in love with a girl and you get that, little tingle in your brain that says, yeah, this one's the one. You actually lock her vision in time. So this is why everybody's always up about marry your high school sweetheart, because when you marry your high school sweetheart, she'll always look like your high school sweetheart. Guys' brains are very malleable that way. Our ego drives our sexual attraction. So if you sleep with a girl when she was that 19-year-old thought at the club, or the 19-year-old thought behind the bleachers, she can be 40, stretch marks, saggy boobs. She's still going to look like that hot, tight 19-year-old to you. That's why Rollo always talks about girls being the pragmatic ones and guys being the aspirational lovers. Girls will see you exactly as you are. They may think of you as their best option. They may absolutely adore you, but they never like delude themselves into think of you as like a younger person. They actually kind of like your distinguished things as you get older, but guys, not so much. So these guys, after a long period of what I refer to as learned helplessness, it's a humanist behavioral study on the concept of that. Guys that basically are, can't escape a situation even when the opportunity is there, they will eventually get something called the wife goggles slapped off their face. And that is it's a weird, I don't want to use the word trauma. I can't think of a word that's maybe like less than trauma, but so I'm going to use that in its placeholder. Just, mute it down, dial it back a bit from the way I'm describing it. And then they stop seeing that hot, 28-year-old that they've been working all their life to get with. And then they see just like this haggard old woman and they get pissed and she's just bitchy and ornery and they hate their life. And same thing, Google search, why won't my wife fuck me? What the hell is wrong with this shit? And then they come up the same Whisper, the same Archwinger, the same Rollo Tomasi article, and both those guys end up in the same place. So yeah, this is one of those convergent strategy or convergent evidence that I use to describe why this stuff is so effective. It's because some guys are on one side of the spectrum and other guys are on the other side of the spectrum. It doesn't matter if you're a Chad. It doesn't matter if you're a little beta Billy, your alpha fucks, your beta bucks, your top of the world, your bottom of the world. All roads lead to Rome. And that was like a wonderful thing. Now, before I move on to the next topic, I'll give you guys a quick little thing on why that ends up being a little harder. So for the Chad guys, that fallen alpha type architecture or archetype, they know what the happiness is like. They know what contentment is like. They know what a really positive masculine lifestyle is like. They're very easy to get on their roadmaps and start their maps. Because they're like, okay, what they really need is understanding. Why the hell did this happen? And they have to realize that their tools were conditional. Their mental models were built on abundance. They can get back there, but here's the ugly side of things. Just so you're aware, outside the walled garden, there's danger there. There's dragons. So they jump right into it. All right, get this done, get this done, get this done. They know what signs to look for. They know what genuine, enthusiastic attraction looks like. And so they get on the program. Now, sometimes they'll make some decisions that morally other people may disagree with, but it's their life, so who cares? The hard part is the other side of things. Those guys who never tasted that freedom. And they fight a lot because even though they've hit this trauma divided by 2 event, they still don't want to believe it. And unfortunately, you have to, I don't want to say trick them, but you have to kind of give them the Mott and Bailey. It's like, I've talked about consequentialism before, or the saying that if the moon is made out of cheese, and if you tell a guy that and he believes it and he goes to the gym 3 days a week, then from a red pill perspective, the moon is made out of cheese. I'm not joking on this either. I always say that red pill is at least the red pill tools are the first beneficial bait and switch for men. You're sold on anger phase. Hey, fuck these bitches. Bitches ain't shit. Your wife treats you like shit. Here's the things you do. Here's some revenge. Here's some anger phase stuff. The guy gets off on it. He's like, this is awesome. And I get attractive. What do I do on Dread now? I still love my wife, though. I'm just so angry at her. It's like, well, you're angry at yourself. Fine. What do I do? And then you start teaching him abundance. You're practicing game, catch and release. And then the guy will eventually get to the point where he realizes, oh, wow, I have options. And he gets just that, here, just open the window. There's the secret society. He looks in there. And he's like, oh, my God, I can make these choices. And then smart guys walk through the thing. Not so smart guys are just like, no, I'm going to go back. And then they go back and do their thing. They live in the lives of quiet desperation. I would argue 80, 90% of guys just LARP. They don't care. If you watch the Mids Watch stuff I've been doing the last couple weeks, I think we're on episode 11 now. Of all of those field reports, one guy has done more than have that singular question. So most guys just don't give a shit. They would rather live in quiet misery than change the way they fundamentally look at the world. So. And yeah, it's a bad covert contract. Anyways. I gotta make some notes here. One thing I forgot to do, and I gotta remember to do this now, is put the timestamps on these ones. I'm pretty good at it. But we're gonna make an effort now. Unfortunately, because it's just me, I don't have a producer, I have to do it manually. So we're gonna do it manually. 17, 00. There we are. So victims of circumstance. This ties right into victims of circumstance. I guess we got a second here. How you guys doing on that? Throw some water on her and walk away. See, casual, that's what guys do who don't know. Look, it sounds great. It's got a lot of bravado to it. Fuck that bitch. Of course, why wouldn't you do that? It's the same way that girls talk a lot of shit on Purple Pill Debate about this stuff. The problem is when you're emotionally invested in a 15-year marriage, a 10-year marriage, 2 kids on the road, you can't just tell a guy, fuck that bitch, and expect it to resonate. It's just not. People have invested a huge chunk of their lives. And while it sounds cool to say, you know what? Ditch them. If they want to treat you like that, I wouldn't put up with that. But you tell that to a guy, I mean, that's the whole point of learned helplessness. Even when you open the cage, you start electrocuting the dog and the dog still doesn't run out. If you don't know what that is, look up the experiment that was done to discover the idea of learned helplessness. No, I know, I get it was a joke. We're using this as a springboard. Okay, so next part. Victims of circumstance. What the hell does that even mean? That's a nice segue to this because it's the common, I don't want to say a shit test, because shit tests are really about a girl is attracted to you and she doesn't trust her judgment, so she throws out these tests to confirm or deny whether that attraction is real. These are more just general disrespect. Yeah. That's when you see shit like, who hurt you? Well, these men are clearly broken and damaged, wounded men, and blah, 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 blah. It's essentially making an argument that you're a victim of your circumstance. You would have been a perfectly pleasant, non-misogynistic guy if only something wouldn't have happened that would mess you up there. It's the same way you look at, Vietnam vets. So, hey, man, you wouldn't have PTSD if you didn't lose that leg in Nam, and it's such a weird, dehumanizing thing. But I understand it. And that's the point. When people make these arguments, don't forget, it's not just, the blue-pilled guys that have model of the world in their heads that they base their decisions on. Everybody has one. And people, and this is your ego. and you'll fight to the death for it. Most people will. If you don't believe me, look up the Crusades. While some people were in it just for the money, a lot of guys were in that because their model of like, the world is worth dying for. Yeah, so I mean, from a strategy standpoint, once somebody starts saying that, realize the conversation is over. They don't want to learn. They don't want to understand. They don't want to converse. What they want to do is shut it down and reconcile the discomfort they have in their heads. So if you're having this conversation, don't waste your time. Trust me. Trust me. But then that kind of, it shows you just how naive people are too, right? So back in the day, we had a very large, family unit. You probably knew your uncles, your aunts, your father, your grandparents. I'm not going to say everybody lived together under one household, but you kind of had this stuff. And grandmother would tell the grandkids stuff about thoughting around because she doesn't give a fuck anymore. And granddad will tell you, hey, don't treat these hoes very well. They don't deserve it, or whatever, like grandfatherly advice. Maybe your dad was a bit of a chat himself. He could say it too. Sure. Those are all gone right now. And I know this is going to be a very unpopular framework for this, but right now in the news, there's a problem with what's called the residential schools in Canada. And that was the idea that the government and the Catholic Church at the time thought, we want to take the First Nations people away from their families and Christianize them. So they put them in the school, Catholic school, do the math, did not go well. But the point was, and the point that was so damaging for that community, was that they were ripped from their culture. There's obviously an American equivalent, which I'm not going to get into here because I still like monetization and keeping the channel. But like, those are very big, high profile examples of it. But to a very, very lesser extent, it's kind of been slow time happening to all of us. It's just one of those things. And so when we lose this ability to pass notes from grandfather to father to son, for various reasons, I'm not here to bitch about the reasons being bad. It has a form of like a desegregation. And so guys were starting to get a handle on this. Okay, so what do we do? How do we handle things when I have problems? My pastor has my back. My uncle's got my back. I got my brother in his marriage. We can talk about it together. And all that shit's gone now. So now guys have to figure it out on their own. And in the world of atomized people, marketing wins. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whose grift you're in, the idea of feminist empowerment has basically taken corporate dollar. Not hard to understand why. Women are the predominant domestic spenders. MasterCard comes out with annual reports every year to talk about the things with credit. It's a weirdly fascinating thing to read, but nobody reads it. And the one I read it was 2018, so it's pre-COVID. Women are a $14 trillion worldwide industry. This is just consumer spending. This has nothing to do with like houses and all that shit. Women don't, and then guys were, I think, 5 trillion. So orders of like 4 times as much as men. Now you pair that with the stat that they also realized that women weren't the predominant earners. Worldwide, they don't earn half the money. They earn like 20% of the income because, a lot of traditional third worlder type countries have basically working men and, stay-at-home mom women. So it's very strange when you realize women only earn about 20% of worldwide income, yet spend 75% of worldwide income. So is it any wonder that anybody who's looking to make money from a commercial standpoint is going to placate women because they are the predominant spenders? Now, the fact that the guy's earning and the girl's spending means it's a very easy pitch to sell men are stupid, like the Homer Simpson thing, So this is what's raising kids now. And I don't want to say it as in like video games cause school shootings. It's not that case there. It's not that you watch a couple advertisements for Ray Romano and all of a sudden you're like, well, now I don't know how to deal with my girlfriend. It's not that. It's that you take guys from a younger age who don't know what to do. They don't have a model for the world, and they're fed these other models that aren't for them. I know it sounds silly, but yeah, the Disney fantasy, it's not that it manipulates guys. It's that guys don't have anywhere else to go other than to episodes of Star Trek or episodes of The Simpsons. And like, I guess that's how guys act because I've never seen or heard of anything else from anybody else, any source I trust. It's not everybody. There's a lot of guys who, still have good family units, are still taught properly, still have a good male network of friends and that. But the window of guys that don't have that is growing, and is growing faster than we like to admit. So that's how we end up in this situation. And I find it extremely crude and dehumanizing then to take all of that and just say, who hurt you? Like, my first thought, other than to laugh, all right, little girl, is just like, fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are? But that's the point too, right? So, like, you can't fault them for it. They didn't know any better either. Nobody knows any better. And that's the scary part for guys. And this is why I actually get irritated on Twitter, which doesn't amount to anything. I get it. But when they start talking about the lizard people, Illuminati, are coming to take your kids and your guns and that, I'm like, dude, that's not scary. An enemy at the gates is a perfectly reasonable thing. That allows guys to shine. We do great when we have an enemy. Here's the problem. Nobody's at the helm. Nobody is driving this. This is strictly the emergent property of an environmental change that we're adapting to as a species. It couldn't have happened any other way. And that's the scary part. But humans are humans, and we're infinitely adaptable. So because we're so adaptable, guys have figured this out. And I know it started weird. It started an LA magician in a goofy top hat and aviator shades, 6'3", wearing 6-inch heels, walking around talking about how to pick up chicks while he was dealing with his own psychological issues. Not the hero that Gotham needed, but the one that it deserved, But yeah, that's because he was outside of, like, mainstream culture, which was awesome. Because when you're outside of, like, the herd, you don't have to adapt to the herd sensibilities. And that's why a lot of things, like, I don't think woke would have happened any other way either, because as people become more comfortable, become more detached from the human condition, of course, whoever is the most loud and brazen and socially signaled person will start winning the narrative. And it just so happened all that shit just took over because, it's a very expensive signal to signal, I hate my culture, I hate my race, I don't like this. Or what's that, a white man who gets mad at cis white men? Or, a heterosexual white man? That's an expensive signal. That's saying I can rally against all this stuff and it doesn't affect me in the slightest. But that's where we're at because there's no real threats. We're fighting for abstract threats now. It's almost like marketing itself. So it's interesting. So yeah, we're all victims of circumstance. And that's kind of the point of this. Everybody's a victim of circumstance. And to sit here and say who hurt you shows me that the other person is either naive or they've been sheltered from this stuff. And it's entirely possible. There's a lot of children that are in their 20s and 30s right now that have been completely bubble wrapped from any sort of hardship in life. It's at the point now where people have to make up hardship. Like, it's crazy how many feminists have to, like, make up stories or it completely exaggerate stories about, past childhood trauma. Some of them are real, but I'm just going to say, if you've had a struggle hugging incident from a powerful figure in your past, and your first thought is to write a book deal before you go to the cops, not buying it. But, it'll get you as a co-star on Aquaman, so you might as well go for it, right? So everybody's lost, and that's why you get weird situations like women are told they can be anything, but not a single woman has provided them a roadmap on the things that have been possible or, beneficial for women. So what do? Like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to be a drunken sociopathic frat boy. Girls aspiring to be broken men. Like, out of all the male archetypes, they literally picked the worst one. I want to be the bad guy in a frat movie from 1984. I think that's what I want. I'm going to cut my hair like that. I'm going to wear the power suits. I'm going to screw over the antagonists who are just trying to have a party to save their grandmother's ski hill. Like, you know what I mean? All that stuff. And it's just weird. And then guys, they don't know any better. They're being raised as defective women. And so you end up with just like the blind leading the blind, except for one group of blind people has a huge financial backing because they're more emotional, which means they spend more money, which means marketers will make more money by appealing to their sensibilities. And you don't need magic and pseudoscience to understand that. You don't. It's just a financial incentive. That's all it is. As much as I want to say it's lizard people trying to take your kids and your gerbs and your guns, like, no, man. Girls are emotional more than men. Emotional people spend money more than non-emotional people. Right now, all the commodities are taken care of. They're ultra cheap. to live now like a king in the Middle Ages is like even homeless people live as well as like kings in the past did. What's left? Branding. How do you feel an identity, a sense of belongingness when there is no belongingness? Well, you spend money on things that sound really cool, and that's why marketing and branding works. It's all comes together, and that's where we're at. So yeah, I don't want to put some noble idea that this is some counterculture. This is just my way of saying we're all victims of circumstance, and who hurt you is the better question is who hasn't been? who hasn't had that hurt moment? And if you haven't had one, then you have no right to be talking about anything, because you really don't know what the world is like. Although I will never cease to tire seeing like Chesty, guy in his late 40s, been through some shit, got out of it on the other side, crushing it in life, have some 21-year-old lecture him on the real world. It warms my heart to see people with that much Dunning-Kruger confidence, you know? All right. Number 3, who is the audience? This is the next one. What's our time? 30:55. Who is the audience? Something I've been wrestling with. This is going to be me talking about me and navel gazing. So this isn't so much red-pilled strategy. It's more of like a meta discussion about the thing. I will be trying to watch chat more here because I'm curious about this. There was a very flawed research paper that came out of, I want to say Berkeley, but I could be mistaken on the university, where they actually tried to do like a discussion of the sphere, the manosphere, which isn't really a thing. If you guys don't know, it was just some stupid term. A bunch of guys were blogging online, and because Tumblr was a female space, they were like, what's the male version? I don't know. Chicks get together. Let's just call it a sphere of men. Manosphere. Sure. Yeah, fuck those guys. And then we're like, that's catchy. I'll stick with that. So it was never really a thing. It's just, if you want to talk about men online creating content, it's just that is the manosphere. It's the Texas sharpshooter. Draw a circle around guys, call it something good enough. So the sphere, lack of a better term, and the weird part about this study is that it was going well. Like there was a bunch of guys learning to sleep with girls. You know, they had some conventions, they had some boot camps, DVDs. It was a neat little counterculture, kind of reminiscent of like 70s punk, British punk, or like 60s beatniks, that kind of thing. The heavy metal stuff out of the 80s. Very cool. But here's the problem then, is that, and this is the author's words, not mine, is that it got invaded by a lot of first-generation Southeast Asian immigrants. Which, and they're kind of in a horrible position too, right? Because, and this is a bit of a generalization, so you're going to have to map this as best you can to real life here. And if there's somebody here who is Southeast Asian and this resonates with, like, sorry, man. But the parents were sold on this image of come to the West, the land of food and honey and land of plenty, milk and honey, that's the one. And then that's where the meme came from, was like, where's my hot blonde? Like, they just wanted hot blondes. It's a great article on this one by The Last Psychiatrist, who's a manosphere adjacent figure. Great article here. I'll put it in here. You can read it at your leisure if you want to. This is one of the sexiest things you've ever seen, you may be a narcissist. So this is a problem that we're dealing, that specific demographic deals with. There's two. The first one is like hypergamy hit them hard because, you know, they come to the West, all of a sudden, all the Southeast Asian girls love white guys. They think it's great. I've been around the world and I've seen some crazy shit when we're in like the melatonin rich world. Like just by being a white guy, and even me, I counted as white over there because I don't look Korean. I'll tell you right now. Like it was just amazing. I understand now what it's like when a girl gets a boob job. Just be a Western guy in a Eastern country, and you'll see it. But because of the way those marketing works, it's very appealing to me, and it kind of built up a societal level of narcissism. Now, one way it manifested is through symbols. And this is where I only bang 9s or 10s, bro, and the idea of hot blondes, the Bob's and Vagine thing come from. It's a great article. I really suggest you read it. He talks about, and I remember a Damon Wayans comedy special. He used to do stand-up, and he talked about how his brothers would come back with white chicks, but they weren't even hot. They were just white, and then he did a a mentally handicapped impression of a girl he was dating. And I was like, oh, that's not going to last. That Def Comedy Jam stuff isn't funny in the 2020s, but But they want the symbols. And the idea of like the hot blonde isn't, I want a hot girl that is blonde, I have a fetish for it. It's the symbol of what it represents, which is a very dehumanizing thing because that's generally how narcissism works. You're the only human being in your story. Everybody else is a set piece, an accessory. What they represent on what does that make me look like to the outside world. In this case, the hot blonde is like a status thing. So you get a bunch of guys that come in with these very, very weird narcissistic fantasies, of which there already was a problem with among just like the general native, like Western populations. But now you get the case where it's like amplified. And that's the problem, is that once something gets past a certain critical mass, it kind of takes over. And that generally killed the pickup scene back in the day. I think like the late 2000s. Funnily enough, that's why the nickname for Toronto is the place where pickup went to die. Is it any surprise this is also the place with like the largest influx of immigration at the time? Just saying. It's not pretty. It's not socially acceptable to say, but it's something to think about. And if you doubt me on this, go to the subreddit Asian masculinity. You'll see it right there. Second, and this is the two problems they guys have there, where it all manifests. Its first is our girls' hypergamy thing, right? The alpha fucks beta bucks. They keep sleeping with all the white guys. They have a lot of fun. They do their thing. And then when they're ready to settle down, they find a nice Asian boy to settle down with to make mom and dad happy. And they literally have been, through no fault of their own, relegated to like the beta bucks category. Now there's a solution out of it. It's the same solution as everybody else, right? The looks money game thing. Be attractive, don't be unattractive. There are certain like racial stereotypes. I'm not even going to get into that. It doesn't really matter, but like attractive is attractive. I don't care who you are. For every East Indian guy complaining about how he's downtrodden here because he's East Indian, I can show you the 20 East Indian guys I grew up with that were absolute chads. Sleeping with everything. But we didn't know when what we know now. So that kind of ruined the space, which is neat. So I'm curious who the audience is now. Because that's the other thing. You talk to a lot of like the middle-aged soccer moms and 20-year-old feminist types. They're going to assume the red pill is all guys in their 40s who want to sleep with 20-year-olds. It's literally the hot blondes. I see some. Not as many as I'd like, though. Because to be fair with you, and this blew my mind when I first saw it, man. When you see guys that are run through the divorce meat grinder, the zeroing out shit, and they're finally on their way again in their 40s, they get back on the horse instantly. Like, they're just crushing it. They're sleeping with 20-year-olds. They're doing shit they didn't think was possible, and they're doing it quickly. Because at this point, like, once you've been through that trauma, like, there's no fear anymore. I wish that the sphere was all full of, like, 47-year-old divorced men, because they would crush it within 6 months, and this thing would be just awesome. But unfortunately, it's not. Talked to you before about the fallen alphas and the beta types. Fallen alphas are a very small percentage. They're just, louder and very successful. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, hey, what's going on, John? It's good to see you, man. Yeah, it was in my 20s, it was natural. I had no knowledge of any of this. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, nobody is saying that this is some hidden arcane knowledge. And this is why it's very easy for a guy, once he's, had decent amount of sex, to kind of get behind this. It's because 80% of it already jives with what you know. You just didn't think about it that way, and you didn't throw a goofy autistic term around it. That's all it is. Like, alpha bucks, or alpha fucks and beta bucks means fucking nothing to the average guy out there who's never heard of the red pill. But if you tell him the girls you went to high school with were like party girls and they slept with everybody and now all of a sudden they're making their boyfriend wait, like, they'll tell you stories. Like, everybody knows this. And that's kind of the advantage of, like, red pill, is that you've taken an OCD level of articulation to the idea. You've synthesized them and you've put terms around them and you've described the phenomenon. Are they accurate? Who cares? They're useful enough that you guys can make good decisions. Oh, it's good. So Johnny's going to be there in Rule 0. It's going to be fun. I think it's 10:15 is starting, so. Yeah, so it's one of those interesting things. You find out that this isn't really that secret. Most guys know 50 to 80% of it. It's that extra little 20% is stuff, and they usually find out it's like, hey, I've been having problems with this and I didn't know it at all. So that's my intended audience. Because I know there's a real threat of that same, like, swarmed in here by guys with narcissistic fantasy. And I'll briefly talk about that before we switch to the last topic here. Yes, it's on Rich's channel. So the narcissistic fantasy, the hot bombs of a gene, the white heels in the example I showed you. Here's one that should resonate with a lot of guys. And every time I see this, it fucking resonates with me. The guys who only fuck 9s and 10s bra. You know, like every time they run into a girl, oh, she's not hot enough for me. They'll find like a, hot ass chick throwing her titties out online. It's like, oh, but her eyebrows are off center. And I just know that's ego talking. Like I've known way too many guys in my single days and even like dating life where I've had to go wing for guys and they're just like, they have an attitude of it's all pink. Most guys just really don't care. There's a very basic threshold to attractiveness that most guys are perfectly fine with. And the only time they start to become more discerning is if they're sleeping with too many girls. And then they have to like filter it out. Every guy's had a slump buster. And I think it's absolutely hilarious. And it lets me know there's like a crippling mental insecurity that not only are guys, I don't want to say afraid, but I can't think of a better word, like afraid of the idea of being embarrassed by their friends over a slump buster. To the point that they're actively sabotaging themselves because it's just the natural way of things is that guys are much less discerning. But again, if you're raised like a broken woman, you're going to start acting like you have hypergamy too. I only want the best for me. It's like, it's not how guys work, man. Like, if you want to settle down and be monogamous, absolutely go for the best for you, for sure. But as a single guy, who gives a shit, you know? If you have been in a 6-month dry spell and your only option is a girl plus 20 pounds, it's like, get in the game or don't. But don't pretend it's because she's not good enough for you. Like, because right now you're at 0. She's getting laid plenty. Yeah, thank you, by the way, Conk. Conk's got the list for it there for you guys. So when you have, and this is like the real danger with these narcissistic fantasies, a lot of guys are like, well, I thought narcissism was that dark triad trait, very attractive to women, which it absolutely is. But, oh, that sucks. Damn toolbox, knocked over some screws. Here's the thing, though. Narcissism is like alcohol. Good to a point. I refer to it as healthy narcissism and unhealthy narcissism. In clinical terms, we can refer to it as the first standard deviation and the second standard deviation versus a third standard deviation. A healthy amount of narcissism is good. You have to consider, and this is the whole concept of rational egoism. You have to consider yourself as your own mental point of origin. You have to be the first consideration of any action you take that has good and bad consequences. You have to think of yourself because we've already discussed it before. Nobody gives a shit about men. Nobody. Your girl doesn't. Your brother doesn't. Your mom doesn't. I mean, maybe she does, but she probably doesn't. Not in the way that you'd like. And that's kind of the hard part that guys have to realize. Like, nobody gives a shit about me. So maybe I should give a shit about me. That's healthy. But then you get it too far. And you get to that point where it's like, I only fuck 9s and 10s, hot bobs and vagine. Then the guy is actively sabotaging his life because his ego is taking control of things. And that's narcissism. People stop becoming people around you. This is where another example of it's the Madonna whore complex. A lot of guys see women as either the virginal Madonna, they could be the mother of my kids in a non-sexual way. Then they see the whore of Babylon, the girl like, oh yeah, she'd probably be good for sleeping with behind a dumpster, but I would never wife her up. Again, that's a narcissistic fantasy. That's the same as the white heels. That's the bobs and vagine. That's the I only do 9s and 10s, bro, for the trad audience. To get past this stuff for a healthier level of narcissism, you have to realize people are just people. Women are women. The same woman that'll suck you in the back office of the nightclub is the same one that'll feed your kids, on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. I thought it was absolutely fantastic this one day, and this is like a small personal anecdote, doesn't really matter, but it helps articulate this. Going to my favorite ramen place in town here. It's awesome. Good place. And there was this family beside us, just eating. The guy was perfectly nice, kind of Chad-like, very muscular, well-dressed. The girl, tattoos from here to here. Just tatted right up. And she's feeding the kid, and they're sitting there and they're laughing. They got the baby stroller. The kid's like maybe 2 years old. There's another 4-year-old beside them. And I'm like, oh, it looks like a nice, happy family. Now, I know that's just a snapshot, and you never know. But incentives matter. Imagine if that guy, who had tattoos himself, I don't think he cared, but imagine if he had listened to some goofball in the manosphere saying, if a girl has colored hair and a tattoo, she belongs to the streets. He's like, well, he managed to sort it out and get himself 2 kids and have a fun little afternoon out with them. So I think incentives matter a lot more than these stupid symbols. But then Again, if you learn nothing else from this cast, learn this. Those symbols that people attach themselves to are mental health manifested as a branding exercise. Think about that. Think about that every time some idiot tells you this. Even to some extent, and I don't want to shit on Rich because I don't think so. Like, it's a good list, but you know that 7 ways to be an attractive woman? In a way, some of those are like symbols as well. Because you're just focused on those 7 symbols as opposed to the behavior of a girl. Just focus on the behavior. Focus on what's right in front of you. Are you being treated well? Great. Are you being treated well and she has colored hair? So what? Do you think the only girls that have ever cheated on their men are ones that have funky colored hair and tattoos and nose rings? It's like, no. There's been some of the nicest, sweetest, countryest, church-going women that have been the absolute worst. There is so many examples of girls that married as a virgin at 18, had a nice family, and blew it all up to go get some dick. There is Mormon porn stars out there who have lived the life and decided, you know what, screw it, I want some dick. So you can't trust outward symbols, because unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, people lie. And people are very good at lying because people self-delude. So you can't even tell when they're lying because they believe it more than you do. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, so I'm not saying those are bad heuristics, the richest ones. What I'm saying is you have to kind of take a critical eye to these things and you wonder, am I focused on things that are after my own sexual best interests, or am I focusing on symbols, which is building up a baseline of unhealthy narcissism to allow me to feed my ego as a coping strategy? And once you can make that differentiation, you can look at things like this much better. Yeah, damn it, Ryan, don't ruin my day off. But hey, it's like that feminist video I did a couple weeks back. Same thing. The zombie apocalypse strategy that Rich talks about. It's like, in zombie apocalypse, what would you do? And the girl started taking it literally. It's like, well, I wouldn't judge a man by that. It's just a fun little game, but I wouldn't trust him. And it's like, yeah, it's a fun little game. Exactly. It's not a symbol. You're just trying to see, like, a girl's actual stance in the zombie apocalypse is not going to make or break a relationship. But by bringing that stuff up, a girl will essentially elicit her values in an abstract way so you can put the math together. Same as the cube. The cube's a great reason for that. You ask a girl about the ladder. Show me what your cube looks like. And the cube, she describes the cube, which is essentially her sense of self. Now, the trick to the cube isn't that you're diagnosing somebody. It's that she tells you about a cube. And you describe the cube. Just pick some shit, whatever. Whatever you think she thinks about herself. And then you look at her. And if you're saying things she's agreeing with, she nods. If she says things she doesn't agree with, she shakes her head. Everybody does this. If you tell somebody something that they agree with, they're always going to start nodding. And then you realize if they're nodding, you keep going. If they're shaking your head, you say but, and then say the exact opposite thing. And in this way, somebody will tell you everything about them just because of some made-up cheese moon reference you made up. And it's very interesting. But that's the thing. You kind of have to hide the intent of it. Because this is the only way to get somebody to speak honestly. Because they don't know you're essentially asking about their innermost thoughts. They don't know that you're asking about what they prefer in a date, or in a lover, or in a friend, or in a job. They're just talking about cubes and stuff, and oh, that's really cool. And you're asking them what they think about themselves. But you're doing it in a non-judgmental way. Same as the zombie apocalypse one. So yeah. Consequentialism. Ignore symbols, focus on consequence. So we are going to go to the last topic now. The grass is greener where you water it. Dude, these things flow really nice. Grass is greener where you water it. And this is going to be a reference to those guys like, you got to go to the Ukraine, man. You got to go to China. You got to go to Japan. You got to go here. Go there if you want to. But I'll tell you right now, there is no country that women don't act like women. You go to Russia, and yeah, they're sweet, and they cook you meals. Again, this is the symbols, right? They cook meals, they stay thin, they don't get tattoos, but they are a fucking battle axe. If you show weakness, they'll be vicious as any American chick would. So even then, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get the same type of girl. Japanese girls, yes, they're very timid, very demure, but they have ways. A lot of girls use cooking as control. Yeah, I want a trad girl that cooks me meals. Well, you've just decided the most important thing in your life, what you put in your mouth, is now completely under her control. Like, do you know the meme about like an Italian grandmother who sees like, or an Italian woman who sees husband trying to make food and she gets mad at him? It's like, no, it's a control thing, man. and they love control. So as much as you say it was old school and trad life, it's a control thing. Disagree. Ever been to some alleys in Thailand? Some not womanly women there. Dude, I'll say this. I have been in the alleyways in Thailand, Phuket to be specific. And the most feminine chicks in Thailand are ladyboys. It actually got to the point that I always, and this is my joke where I only fuck 9s and 10s, bro. I'm like, no, when you go to Thailand, you want to keep a hard cap on the 6, just to be safe. I do not only fuck 9s and 10s, bro, in Thailand. I'm telling you, you don't want it. or maybe you do. Maybe you're a Mike Cernovich type, and that's like the greatest thing for you. Who knows? Anyways, there's a canceling joke. I'll see you guys on Rumble and Locals.com. Well, she might not either, Casual, because there's like really good surgery down there too, right? So you never know. But anyways, I could tell Thailand stories forever. It's not the point. You guys don't want to hear about me being an asshole in Thailand. You want to hear about you having some better sexual strategy and understanding it towards the mental health aspect of it too. Yeah, so what do I mean when I say the grass is greener where you water it? Which is weird, because doesn't that go against the iron rule of Tomasi number 7? It's better to source a new girl out than to try and salvage one you've already got. Absolutely true. It's not the point. And this is kind of, I did a thing about guys with no frame and what they do. Right there is your perfect example of guys who have no frame and the things they do. I almost want to say like Rollo was setting a trap when he does this, because the guys who then, because they always frame it from the female perspective. Her, she. It's like, you're going to tell me your life story. You're not even the main protagonist. It's like, why the fuck do I care? Put your girl on the line. If you're just going to describe her, I'd rather hear it from her. I want an autobiography, not a biography, Yeah, so, and Janice, I'll say this, man. Atlas didn't ask for a lighter load, but stronger shoulders. So grass is greener where you water it. That means you become a better gardener. You water better. It's not about the girl. I always say this to guys running their map. Well, all these married red pill guys are ridiculous because all they try to do is fix their wives. It's like, no, man. Those guys don't make it. They just don't. And it's most guys. In fact, almost the first 30 mids watches you're going to watch from me are guys trying to fix their marriage. And every single one of them is a fucking idiot. A fucking idiot. Because they keep trying to fix it. And the more they try to fix it, the worse it gets. Because the girl's already checked out. Like, have you ever seen a used car salesman try to sell something to somebody who doesn't want to buy? That's exactly what you're doing. Instead, what should be happening is the guy has to realize the writing's on the wall. She just doesn't like you, bro. Yeah, but we're married and we have 3 kids. Like, she just doesn't like you, bro. Yeah, but she like, I don't care about her. She's not the one searching, why won't my wife fuck me on the internet? So why would I try to fix her problems? Yeah, but I don't care about but. Either put her on the line or fucking sort out you. And that's like, it got so bad that Wine More Please, one of the moderators there, actually started to ban people if he could count more she statements in their field reports than I statements. Because I got no time to hear about everybody's bitch ex-wife. Come in here and talk about yourself for once. Stop trying to light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Yeah. So you make yourself more fuckable. Well, that's weird. I just wanted to win my wife back. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Your wife tries to win you. That's how it works. Women want a prize. Men want options. Men want options. Women want a prize. What is it? Oscar Wilde, I think it said, men are very complicated. They love infinite variety in their women. Women, however, are very simple. They will simply settle for the best. And you take that. It's a very profound statement, right? I mean, there's Briffault's law, and we're not going to get into that stuff because it goes down a whole rabbit hole. And frankly, we don't have the time. I got another 8 minutes to describe this before we can chill and talk and chat together. So yeah, you make, like, here's the question I ask guys when they are in a really shitty dead bedroom. If your wife died tomorrow, heaven forbid, would another woman want to fuck you that weekend? Would they want to fuck you at the funeral? It's a crass example, but it gets the point across. Wow. I don't know. Well, there's your problem. If some girl who doesn't know any of your goofy bullshit and any of your weaknesses and all of the baggage you've laid off over years, if a girl who doesn't know any of that and just sees you here the way you are right now, and she doesn't want to fuck you, why does that other girl who's known you and seen all of your worst habits, why does she get it? What makes her any different than any other girl? Again, it's the Madonna and whore thing. Well, this one's a Madonna. Of course she should love me for who I am. It's like, yeah, no, man. It's not what works. And it's hard because, I mean, first off, it's not our job to fix another guy's life. He has to want to fix it for himself. So this is why the luxury branding thing is kind of apt, because you have to sell to a guy that you don't want to sell to and you don't need his business from. So he has to do the heavy lifting. He has to want it. Most guys don't. But there's a few that do. And the ones that do end up succeeding. So you show him this, get to the point where some girl's willing to fuck you. And then watch how your wife behaves. And sure enough, every time it happens, it's like this. There has been like dozens of stories where a guy is just like doing his life, building his value, trying to become more fuckable. They end up at like a birthday party of their kids or something like that. And some of the other moms there start touching his arms more, talking about how he's looking a lot better. Sometimes even taking him into the coat check room and fooling around a little bit while the husband's watching the kids. Some crazy stories. The point is, though, all of a sudden, when some female attention starts coming his way, when he starts getting those IOIs, when girls start putting themselves out there, and other girls are very observant to this, right? A lot of the times these guys were completely oblivious to this shit. They just thought they were being friendly and doing whatever. And like all of a sudden my wife came home and blew me and swallowed. What the fuck happened there? And they're like, yeah, you don't know? The guy's like, no, what? It's like, you became attractive. You now have pre-selection. And now your wife is attracted to you. And guys get mad on that too. They're like, whatever. I watered this grass and now the grass is over there is acting like it wants water. Like, fuck that. You're like, dude, stop thinking about it like that. Because they keep thinking it's like, so the only way she wants to fuck me is if it's to keep me loyal and some other chick wants to fuck me. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. It's that other women wanting what she has is a turn on. In the same way that you look at a chick with like bolted on tits can get you fucking stupid. If a girl sees she's got a man that other chicks are fighting to get, that jealousy in her, it's an attractive quality. It's not like guys. Guys and girls are different. Guys treat jealousy as a sexual threat. Aggravating, anger thing. Bad things happen. Not good. Girls treat jealousy like as a prize. Damn straight, I'm going to beat that bitch. I'm going to take this man. I don't care if it's hers. Now the girl that's already got you, she's more than happy to. Now there's no guarantees, don't get me wrong. I did the safety net thing here before, but that's when a guy realizes his own self-worth, right? They've been sold on that defective women thing where the guys think, well, I'm 30 now, I've hit the wall, I'm not attractive anymore. And you're like, are you fucking stupid? You don't have eggs to rent out, dude. Insert Stefan Molyneux egg carton meme here. It's like, yeah, no. And then you make yourself more attractive to more women, and then you realize you can pick. Now, maybe your wife still doesn't want to sleep with you. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that, which we can't get into now. We don't have a lot of time, but your wife is a normal, healthy woman, just like anybody else. All of a sudden, she finds you more attractive. And then once guys understand that transactional, pragmatic nature of female attraction, it kills a little bit of the fantasy. This is actually one of the probably most common critiques of the red pill. I used to find dating fun, and now I don't anymore. Now it seems almost like a chore, or, it lost its magic. And it's like, yeah, well, somebody had to tell you the Easter Bunny and Santa don't exist. It sucks, man, but hey, at least now you're getting blown 3 days a week. I'm sure you'll cry yourself to sleep there on your sexual satisfaction, right? And see, Janice, exactly what I'm talking about here. You can't even describe red pill stuff from the male perspective. You're describing it from the female perspective. And this is what I'm trying to articulate here, is that you can't be doing that. Casual, this is what we're talking about here. As I've gotten more into shape, she's becoming more of a pain in the ass. A pain in the ass to me. Do you get that? Like he's starting to tell it from his own perspective. And this is kind of what we're trying to go with. Actually, it's not kind of. It's exactly what we're talking about with Frame. Everything about the people around him is described in relationship to him. She's now a pain in the ass to me. I don't want to handle that stuff. But and this is why a lot of the feminist types get really mad at it too, because you see what he's doing there? He's having expectations of his woman now. And he gets to have expectations because he has options. Dude, I could sleep with girls. That's not a big deal. I chose to have you here. But if you're here, you're going to have expectations. You're going to try to stay in shape. You're going to do your best. We're going to have something to eat. You're going to be pleasant. Shit like that. And it's not going to be perfect. No relationship is perfect. A girl will nag in the same way that the sun rises in the east. But you've learned to deal with it. Ask not for a lighter load, but ask for stronger shoulders. It's just like Atlas. And it's the same thing. She'll still nag. She'll still get mad. My girl still does the same as every girl does. One day, she's like, I'm crying right now and I don't know why. And you're like, don't sweat it. She's been a good girl to me 100% of the time. So yeah, give her a big hug, kiss on the forehead, cuddle a little bit, make them feel good. Awesome. Awesome. But at the same time, if I lived with like some ornery battle axe of a woman and she's sitting there constantly demanding my time and attention to placate her emotions, I'm like, fuck you. And just because you're willing to look after your own self-interest, these situations come up less and less and less. And so you have to use these tools less and less and less. It turns out when you're worth a damn, people start investing in you. It's just like being a rich guy. Rich people don't buy shit. Rich people are gifted things by people who want rich people to wear their shit. Do you think Donald Trump buys those god-awful red ties? No, man. Tie companies are giving them to him. Do you think... I want to say Kanye, but he's got his own brand. But like, yeah, do you think those wealthy debutantes and Oscar-winning actresses, do you think they buy those dresses? It's like, no, man. Those dresses are gifted to them because people want them to wear it. So the richer you are, the less shit you buy. In the same way that the more attractive you are and the more attractive you act and the more aloof and the more self-interested and the more rational self-egoism and the more healthy narcissism you have, the less people test your boundaries. Because people only go after soft targets, which is awesome. And this is where you try to get a guy. And this is why I cannot stand the whammon ain't shit profit model in like the online space. I can't stand it because it's basically distracting you from what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is to you to be that guy that fucks. That's it. What you do with that, it's up to you. You want to have a white picket fence, 3 kids? Fill your boots. You know the risks. Go do what you do. You want to be the 50-year-old commensurate bachelor who just fucks 20-year-olds until he dies of a heart attack? Fill your boots. Know the risks involved, know the benefits involved, do what you got to do to get there. You want to be the guy like me who just carves out his own path, a common law relationship, live downtown in a major city, have some fun, go out and have ramen on the weekends with your tattooed friends? Fill your boots. Your life is yours to live and nobody gets a say in it. They don't get to tell you, dude, you're not fucking 9s and 10s, bro. Dude, you're not with hot blonde and vagine. Dude, you don't have 8 kids. Are you really a man? To which I answer, fuck you. Until you pay my fucking rent, you don't get a say in my life. And that's where I want guys to be. It's kind of a good thing, by the way, that Twitter is such a cesspool. Because every time I see this guy shitting on me or my lifestyle and that, and they make the point for me. Like, it's not about me. But at the same time, it's a great example of like, I don't really care. You're welcome to shit on any aspect of my life you want. It's not going to change things one lick. I'm happy. I'm content, and so can you. There's my Gumroad course, 297, on how to be happy and content. Yeah. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I play into it. But it's marketing. You know what you got to do. I got to tell you guys whammon ain't shit every month. Otherwise, nobody subscribes to the channel, and nobody learns this stuff. I'm essentially taking full grown-ass men and saying, open your mouth for the choo-choo, and then I have to spoon feed you the medicine while making airplane sounds. So yeah, I hold my nose and do it. Rolo does it, Rich does it, John does it. We gotta do it. Hey, it's just the game. But hey, if you can't stow your ego and learn to play the game to win, then you shouldn't be playing the game to begin with. I think it's a nice metaphor for like the red pill stuff anyway. Anyways, so that's the 4 different topics here. Fallen alphas, rising betas. Victims of circumstance, who is the audience? And the grass is greener where you water it. There. So if you want to watch these things later, very pithy, snappy comments, time-stamped. If you're watching this after the fact, so you can follow each topic as... Ooh. Rich just messaged me, by the way. So they're pushing back another 10 minutes. So we got some more time. Now we're going to be more casual. Oh yeah, so I'm going to make that one there. So 104. Oops. Casual conversation. Let's see what the chat. If you want priority, I'm going to pick the ones here I want to talk about. If you guys want priority, send a super chat. Excuse me. So Casual asks, are you writing your book? I am writing my book. I'm actually starting the second draft as we speak. I don't know if it's the proper way to write a book, but the way I have learned to do it is to write 3 drafts. My first draft is I write it the way I think it should be written. The second draft is where I look at it and realize this is garbage, I don't like it, and then I rewrite it, and then it cleans up. And then the third draft is where I actually have an idea now what the book should look like, and I do a third draft. That's the halfway point. And then I do 2 rounds of editing, and then hire an editor for the third round of editing, and then work on cover design, typography, and shit like that. So, yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. I was thinking. So we're pushing it back. It's going to be 10:25 now, I think, for Rule 0. There was something on Rich's side. I don't know what it was, but he's like, you have to push it back another 10 minutes. So that's why we're spending some time chilling out here. Yeah, but ramen really ain't shit. Anyways, is this a Hawaiian t-shirt? All my shirts are like colorful. This one's just a plain old-fashioned floral pattern t-shirt. I don't know. I guess from style perspectives, I don't just wear Hawaiian shirts. I just like to play around with the different elements of style. So there's the cut. Like a t-shirt, a polo shirt, a short sleeve dress shirt, a long sleeve dress shirt, a linen shirt. Like each one of those serves a specific function. T-shirts are essentially underwear. Polo shirts are essentially sportswear. Short sleeve button-up shirts are like very casual wear. And then long sleeve button-up shirts, vary level of casualness and formality depending on, like, does it have a yoke on the back? Then it's probably something that's more like blue collar signaling, like a pair of jeans. Is it a linen shirt? It tends to be more like tropical. Is it more of like a crisp cotton shirt? It tends to be more formal. That's one way to look at fashion. What's the purpose of things? Why is a chino a chino? It's a Chinese cotton pant. That's why the Italians called them chinos. So what's a khaki then? Well, a khaki there was a naval commander who used to wear tropical whites for the British Army or British Navy. And then he found it was impossible to keep them white. So he made up a stain based on like coffee beans and stuff that gave it like a tanned color, which he called khaki. So then you kind of understand that that's a military type thing there. So you're signaling like a military wear in a very casual way. And then you kind of learn about clothes there. So cutting that off, Wando, $2 super chat. Thank you very much. And the audience around for Evil Psych Curiosity. Nice. Yeah, careful. This is the kind of controversial stuff you get banned from YouTube for. I want to say yes, probably. But I'll say this. I'm a big fan of comedian Ryan Long. Which, if you guys haven't seen him, he's on YouTube. Pretty funny. Some of his podcasts put mine to shame. And he's pulling some pretty big views on it. So I'm treating him as my canary in the coal mine. As long as he's still around, I'll be just fine. And he was bringing up like trans stuff and gay stuff and ice cream and I don't even know, all kinds of nonsense. And he just doesn't give a fuck. So I'm like, if he'll be fine, I'll be fine. I genuinely think that for the most part, if you stay out of American politics, your YouTube career will probably be pretty safe. Oh yeah, so back to the fashion thing. So yeah, the Hawaiian shirts. Oh, I meant talking about shirts. So that's one thing. And then there's the material. Like if you want to have denim is a working cloth. It's French, go figure. Denim is working cloth. If you want to signal like more hardworking and brash, you wear denim. If you want to signal more affluence, you wear like linen or sateen or, polyester signals like a 70s thing. It's like technological, not very good at breathing. Fitness wear, like jogging pants, signal laziness, and lethargy and shit like that. Or I'm just so hot that I can wear a garbage bag and still get some. There's that aspect of it too. The other things that not a lot of people play around with are texture, pattern, and color. And that's the part, that's why I like these shirts. Like, case in point, this is light blue, black, gray, and white. But it's like, I could just wear a normal blue t-shirt, but that's fairly boring. But this kind of stands out. So if I put it with something that's very plain colored on the bottom, like a khaki or a jean, it's just, it stands out, and it shows, and it sends a signal. Like Tanner Guzzi talks a lot about this, about like how your clothes communicate your style and what you're trying to say about people. In this case, it basically signals like a no fear social interaction thing. Like you walk into a bar, I have like pink shirts with flowers all over them. Walk in there, walk somewhere with that. It just shows fun, don't take myself too seriously, not insecure. Like those are the signals I send. And then you just match colors and that to show you also know how to put an outfit together. You have half an eye for style. Yeah. Oh, you make shirts. Well, Grandmaster, do me a solid. Hit me up on Twitter if you have an account. If not, my email's in the about page on this one. I'd be kind of curious in this because the guys have been pressuring me for merch for the longest time on the channel. And I want to, but I don't want to just do, and I don't know. We'll see. My first concern is I didn't want to make just like the cheapest crap possible and throw a logo on it, even though most likely it would still do well. And I may go that route, but I would kind of like the idea of something that I would buy for myself, you know? So it'll be fun. Vaccine hysteria has reached fever pitch in Australia. Dude, did you see the news? In Israel, they're basically saying we're going to force vaccines through coercion right now. And that's scary, man. Like I made the case yesterday that like, do you know who's going to win if you start forcing vaccinations on people? If you force people to have medical procedures done on them? Pro-lifers. Girls have been fighting for 50 years with that my body, my choice stuff. And with one fear-mongered thing, they're going to throw all of that back. So I don't know why women are driving this thing that way, because it's probably because they just don't see for what it is. And I just, like I said, I like the idea of vaccines. I like the idea of proper testing for vaccines. And I like the idea of preventing, curable diseases when at all possible. At the same time, I do not like government overreach. I do not like forced mandated medical procedures, and I don't like fear mongering. So it's kind of put me on the side of like Facebook Karen, which sucks, but I guess, you don't get to pick and choose your bedweather fellows. Diego Osorio, why are you so cynical about selling merch? Do you equate selling merch to promoting clickbait red meat content? Is not selling merch a type of signal? No. Don't get me wrong. I got no problems doing it, but all right, so when it comes to merch, there's two schools of thought from it. The first one is a branding thing, and the second one is I don't know what the word for it is, but it's the other thing. So for example, the branding thing, throw your name on it. It's like the Star Wars model. Whatever, fucking Frosted Flakes, put Star Wars on the front, that'll sell. And it does great, and a lot of people like it, and it shows support for a brand they like. That's great. A lot of people, and I use the example of PewDiePie here. You guys know he has a clothing line? I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head here, but what he's done with his is it's something that you would, even if you didn't like PewDiePie, you would still buy it because it's cool. I like that. I think even H3H3 has his Teddy Fresh. I mean, you'll buy it because it's H3 if you're a fan of him, and I don't know why you would be, but whatever. But it's the kind of clothing you could see yourself wearing even if you're not a fan of him, because it's like, oh, that's kind of neat. And that's kind of, ideally, that's the direction I would like to go. Like something like, let's say I got banned from YouTube tomorrow. I would still like the idea of whatever merch I had some longevity beyond just my stupid face telling you guys that Whammon ain't shit. So it'd be kind of neat. But like I said, Rich keeps giving me a lot of pressure, calling me an idiot about this stuff, and John calls me an idiot too, so I may buckle and just listen to what the very smart, the smart marketing type people are telling me to do, and stop being so stubborn. But yeah, there's no issue about like, oh, you should be free, socialism. It's like, no, I don't care about that shit. I like taking this seriously, and I like doing things properly. And this is all new to me. So a lot of it for me is just like making sure I don't fuck it up. If that helps. Is that a better explanation? Like the last thing, and I know it'd probably be funny, but because like my girl has this old sweater from when she was in high school. She still has it. She wears it every now and again. She knows I hate it. It's like, in case of emergency, dial 1-800-EAT-SHIT. Like, those old joke sweaters they used to have? I call it her eat shit sweater. I hate the thing so much. And if I come out with like a t-shirt that just says Whammon ain't shit on it, it's essentially an eat shit sweater for everybody, which I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, timeless choices. That's the plan. But we'll see. I may end up eating these words if after careful deliberation and some market testing on stuff, I end up with like hey, here's some laminate shit t-shirts. Wear them now. A big red pill on the back like Akira. There. Wear that to your office job and have HR have a chat with you. Oh yeah, see, cold steel, that's the interesting thing too. So what about herd immunity? Wouldn't that require everybody to get vaccinated? I think, if I'm not mistaken, it takes 95% of people to have some form of immunity in order for herd immunity, which is true. How you getting that? My question, it's not about not getting there. There's certain surrounding issues around it. First, is that my primary concern? Personally, I find the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to be more important than herd immunity in this case. So it's a value judgment on my side, which I'm very surprised that even the Prime Minister doesn't go with that. It's like these freedoms are supposed to be freedoms. They're not supposed to be like subject to approval. Secondly, there's many ways to get herd immunity other than a vaccination. There was a case, you could do the Sweden model. Everybody who's over the age of 80 or has comorbidities, you lock them down hard for a 6-month period. You get everybody out in the streets, go lick each other. Everybody go get it. Everybody catches it. Everybody becomes who's like asymptomatic or gets sick. They all get better. Herd immunity is achieved that way, just by leaving things open, right? So that's one way of doing it. Vaccines would be another way. This mRNA that they're using now, or like CRISPR's, which isn't a traditional vaccine, so it's not as well tested. There's a lot of research, but we're essentially conducting third stage human trials live. Now, there's a risk involved with that. Is the risk greater than COVID? Is the risk worse than COVID? Dr. Thomas Seeger actually just sent me something. I got to go take a look at it right now. We'll see where the numbers pan out because it's been about a year. So I'll be curious. Maybe it's the case where it is a smaller risk or a bigger risk for some groups and lesser risk for other groups. It'd be interesting. But, and this is my only point, is that I don't trust other people to make that decision for me. Like, that's my decision to make. And I don't like the idea of coercion being used for it. And if these threats and coercive measures work today, they're going to work tomorrow with something we don't like. Like, I was around. I joined the military after the War on Terror. I bought into the whole terrorist are taking our freedom shit. 2003, I signed up. Americans were going to Iraq. We were going to Afghanistan. I'm like, all right, it's time to get my piece. Yeah, I'm not going through that again, man. I don't care. Anyways, I'm glad you like the content, Emma. Hey, wait, are you Emma, or a different Emma? But yeah, shamed my brother for wearing them. And that's the thing too, right? Like, I'm not going to shame a guy for doing that. I think it's silly. I think the double maskers are silly. In fact, I think masks are silly. But at the same time, I also know if a business wants business, they can dictate any legal activity inside there. They could say I have to wear a dinner jacket when I go into a restaurant. I either don't shop there or I apply by their policy. That's kind of my stance on masks. Whether or not you think they work is kind of irrelevant, right? Foxwell brings up a good point on the deaths, though. The one thing man, I've totally fucked up this whole podcast. Now we're having like a COVID denier thing. But yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know. I have to check it again. But I remember last year, I was like, I wonder, how deadly is COVID? And I tried to look up. It was actually harder to find than I thought. Like, how many people died of COVID? And then you can't find that out because if somebody died and had COVID, they counted as a COVID death. So you're like, okay, so the numbers are kind of suspect. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. Listen to your chat about Wisdom of Psychopaths with Jack Napier. Wondering if you consider a sidebar series on it. I'll have to look. That's the problem. Like, the sidebar series, it's not something I'm making up, right? The sidebar series is a very specific set of material. It's literally the things that every guy who comes through the red pill or the married red pill is taken as like required reading. This has been there for years. It's been a slowly, carefully curated and managed group of things, and I don't want to just start adding shit willy-nilly to it because I think it's useful. So I'm probably going to do a different like series playlist for that kind of stuff. I think it's very valuable. Like, for example, oh wait, no, I think Why Women Have Sex. I think I did get that one on the sidebar. But stuff like Wisdom of Psychopath, it's not sidebar material. Ryan Holiday's Trust Me, I'm Lying, Tales of a Media Manipulator. That's it. So yeah, that'll be a secondary thing. I don't know what I'll do with that yet, but I've already done the math. I just checked in yesterday. I have like 100 episodes of Mids Watch that I've got planned out, and I've got another like 53 sidebar things planned out. So that's like 2 years of shit, and that's if I start cranking out videos back at the old pace of like 4 days a week and shit. I don't know if I got it in me, guys, and I won't be able to write a book and do a newsletter while I'm doing that. Oh, so yeah, back to the death thing. So it was kind of interesting. I just like couldn't find the numbers, but I'm like, okay, so what kills more people? Let's start comparing it to things. Is it worse than car accidents? Turns out no. Is it worse than other diseases? Turns out tuberculosis killed more people than COVID. So why aren't we freaking out about tuberculosis? The only answer I can come up with is because tuberculosis hits people in the third world because everybody else here is vaccinated against it. I'm like, okay, so whatever. But that's me. I'll take it from a risk perspective. Like, how deadly is COVID compared to every other threat in your life? And people should have taken this from 2001, terrorism. Odds of dying to a terrorist are irrelevant. McDonald's will kill you before a terrorist will. But we were horrible at risk analysis, so now you have to take off your shoes at the airport, you know? And so I've still been trying to, like, find where to put COVID as far as, like, all the threats that affect you today, where are they? And it doesn't help that I can't find material because it's just saturated. Like, every media outlet is trying to tell you. Do you remember when it first came out? They were saying COVID was going to make you sterile. COVID was going to make your dick stop working. COVID was going to kill all the eggs in your body. And everybody's like, oh my God, I need babies. What the fuck? And then the COVID vaccine was being developed. Now, oh, the vaccine will kill your dick. Oh, the vaccine will kill your ovaries. Oh, the vaccine will kill you. None of this ends up being true. It turns out COVID and the vaccine have nothing to do with your dick and balls working. But then how do you find actual information? And unfortunately, the only way to do it is to go find research papers. But here's the problem. The mask research, there's been like, I'll just use this as an example. So I was trying to find out, are masks actually effective and how effective are they? It turns out not very, but it's a good like placebo measure. The usefulness of masks is you don't spit into people's open wounds. So you don't make people sick and you don't kill people on the operating table, which is great. But it makes people feel better. The problem with it, though, is that it makes people act more confident, which actually increases the chances of spreading. So it's actually kind of like a bad idea. But whatever, we're past that now. Wear your mask, sirs. Wear 4. There was a bunch of studies. They weren't COVID related, but they were like in the surgery room. Do doctors get sick less because they wear masks all day? In surgery, does it increase outcomes? And that's what they found. The biggest thing is it keeps you from spitting on people, which causes harm if you're sick, but it doesn't make you any less chance getting sick. And this was like proper studies with like qualified people, decent respirator masks, not wearing a fucking ripped up sock on your face, right? So I'm like, okay, so it seems pretty clear that the research that has been done doesn't support the idea that masks are saving lives. But political solution aside, we're at where we're at. Then all of a sudden, Wuhan started to have a study saying masks are great, and there's some research here. And unfortunately, I'm not good enough at reading research to be able to say if the study is or isn't bunk. But now I've got like 6 studies that say one thing, one that says another. Smart people I've talked to said it's essentially a placebo, and you're like, all right, fuck, what do I do? And then I have Facebook Karens telling me one thing, and then Facebook Karens telling me the other thing, and I'm just like, the only thing I could trust right now is my own judgment. And I don't trust people that are trying to manipulate me. So that's I think that's the final thing I'll say on COVID, is that you just can't trust your instincts, do research, find what you need to find, and then make sure you have your value priorities in order. Like I said, I would rather catch COVID 5 times than give up my right to freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, and the ability just to enjoy my life as I see fit. I would rather die enjoying life than not. Now, I know it sounds like a tough guy thing, but I like to think I've earned my, like, fuck it stripes. I've almost died a few times. Avian flu, car accident, time in the military, the deployment. I think I'll be fine. Yeah, and I'm with you too, Braver. Like, it's most likely not as dangerous as people make it out to be. I know there's an increased danger to certain people and less danger to others that would have been more susceptible to COVID, but I don't know the numbers. In fact, the part that scares me is we don't know the numbers. Anyway, so yeah, Rule 0 started. So we're going to end this one off. Thanks, guys, for sticking around. I'll catch you on the next stream. I'll be over on Rich's channel in just a minute, okay? Go scroll up a little bit. Kong put the link on there, but I'll see you guys in a minute.